All right. Well, it's 10 o'clock, and so I think it would be good to get started. I'm going to be facilitating this meeting. I'm Maureen McGuire from the Farm Bureau of Ventura County. And first of all, I wanted to express, how much everyone who's been impacted by the mountain fire is in our in our thoughts right now, and we want to make sure that we are giving all the opportunity for people to connect with resources. So Lisa Tate started getting everyone together to try to share some of the thoughts and insights about her experience recovering from the Thomas Fire, to hopefully give people the benefit of that, silver lining of everything that we have learned through recovering from that disaster. So first, I wanted to give the opportunity for Supervisor Gorell to say a couple of things. Then we will go over the disaster reporting for the Ag Commissioner, and then I'll hand it over to Rachel and Lisa to share their experiences. We've invited a variety of different agencies here who will be available to also jump in on Q&A. So after Rachel and Lisa speak, then I'll invite them to introduce themselves really quickly, and then we can do a robust Q&A to try to get people connected with the right people. I will then edit the video of this recording and make it available for everyone to distribute to their communities. And then we'll have another meeting on Monday at 10 a.m. at the same Zoom location, where we will hear from USDA Farm Service Agency and RCD, Resource Conservation District, who's also with us today, and NRCS, and the National Resource Conservation Services, and kind of focus today on what needs to happen now immediately, and then focus on Monday about, resources for recovery. Then we've scheduled a December 6th webinar at 10 a.m. To hopefully do another touch-in with the community, gather what kind of resources are needed, and ensure that people have an opportunity to ask additional questions as they have gathered more information in this recovery process. So I'll turn it over to you, Supervisor Gorell. Thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Jeff Gorell, County Supervisor for the Second District. The Second District is a strange, it's a strange district on the map. It doesn't necessarily make sense politically, but what it does is it goes through the entire area of the both branches of this fire, including Somas, including the Camarillo Heights. So 100% of the damage, 100% of the structures lost, 100% of the ag loss in this mountain fire was in the Second District that I represent. So I have been connected at the hip with all of our, firefighters, obviously, with Cal OES, with the governor's office, with our local team, and I just wanted to start and say, I've been up there, I've seen it. I know so many friends that have lost their homes, and so many friends that have lost their ag property, that it's heartbreaking, and my condolences and deep sympathies go out to all of you who are struggling. In a couple of seconds, when I wrap up, I'm gonna share with you my cell phone, my personal cell phone, and I want you to call me and to use that. I'm gonna share it in a couple of seconds, so get a piece of paper or prepare to put it in your phone. But this is the one that comes directly to me, and I've been giving it out, particularly to those who have lost property during this mountain fire. It's important for me to connect with you personally and individually. Some light through the clouds is that we've been through this before, and amazing folks like Maureen at Farm Bureau, and Corinne at the Ag Commissioner's office, and these folks, or Rob Roy at VCAA, all have just been, have the scars to prove that we've all been through this before. And the other good news and the other silver lining through the clouds is that this Board of Supervisors is 100% dedicated to relief efforts. And what I mean by that is everyone says that, but this board has already made it clear that the efforts that were made after the Thomas fire, as terms of timeline of recovery, are unacceptable. And there are clear times when government needs to help, and there are clear times where government needs to get the heck out of the way. And we've learned a lot about when both of those important postures take place. So with that, I just wanted to say, I'm sure you've heard about the local assistance center that we're standing up, disaster recovery center. It's called under other terms. We're standing that up. It's starting tomorrow. It'll essentially be, 9 to 6 or 9 to 7 every day. That'll conform to the foot traffic and the need, but we'll have everyone there. The insurance commissioner will be there. The permitting, our planning department will be there. All of the agencies and nonprofits that need to be there will be there and accessible. I'll be there. I'll have a table there. So local assistance center, that's starting in Camarillo, tomorrow at the Ventura County Office of Education. Tonight at 6:30, we have another town hall for those who've lost so much. That town hall is at the Rancho Campana High School Performing Arts, and that's at 6:30 in Camarillo at that high school. I'll be there again, and so many other folks will talk about recovery there. So the tax implications are assessors will be there, and the public works and debris removal is like the top thing. What are we going to do about debris removal? So all of this stuff is being worked on feverishly around the clock, and I'm really proud of our team, really proud of the folks here that are taking their own initiative to say we have to do our own webinar to understand lessons learned from the previous fires and share those with folks that might not have been through it already. My cell phone is area code 805-217-7679, 805-217-7679. My direct email doesn't go through staff, doesn't get ferreted out, comes right to me, right to my cell phone, right to my computer, is jeff.gorell@ventura.org. jeff.gorell@ventura.org. So with that, I'll turn it back, and I just want to thank everyone and Maureen in particular, for standing this up, and for all those that are going to participate in lessons learned. It's amazing. I'm honored to be part of this community and to represent this community. And I'll stick around for a little bit. I can be here for another maybe half hour, and then I've got to go to a Borderline event that was postponed for a memorial. But thank you. Appreciate it, Maureen.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Gorell, and we really appreciate the efforts that you've done to bring the community together. Like Supervisor Gorell said, there's lots of resources out there and other community meetings happening. So we're going to be really focused on ag in this conversation. So to that end, I wanted to share and review the damage agricultural assessment form. Can people see my screen? Okay, I'm seeing nods. So this form is essential for our community to fill out in order to allow the County of Ventura to advocate for the resources that are going to be needed to recover from the fire. So I'm going to be sending out this form. The Agri Commissioner is sending out the form, and if you can share it with all of your neighbors. This form, the data goes into the Ag Commissioner's assessment of the damages here, and then that's used to advocate for recovery funds at the state and national level. So it's a pretty easy form. You just put in your name, your business name, your address, your assessor's parcel number, which you can find on County View if you don't know it, your contact information, and then make an estimate of what kinds of damages happened on your field, what kinds of losses you estimate those to be, crop damages, crop loss. And then you can either drop off the form, or if you click submit form, it will email this PDF over to Alec, who is the coordinator for this at the Ag Commissioners. So this form is what's going to be used to report out to all of the different agencies about what kind of resources are needed here in Ventura County. So let's see. Unless there's somebody from the Ag Commissioner, I know Alec Phil's stuck on the 118, so he's not going to be able to join us right now. But if anybody else from the Ag Commissioner wants to talk.
Corinne's here now. We
Oh,
have,
Corinne.
Corinne and Alec here.
Hi.
Sorry, I stole your agenda item.
No, that's quite all right. Thank you so much, Maureen and Louise and Lisa and Rachel for coming up with this really wonderful idea. I can't think of a better way to help people than to use lessons learned. And I think that's such a wonderful thing that we can give to our community. I just want to start out by saying how genuinely sorry I am for all of those impacted. I absolutely know where you guys are. I was there in 2017 with the Thomas Fire. It started right above my house. We were the first set of houses impacted. And I remember getting a call. I was working on the crop report, very late crop report. And I get a call from my husband saying fires on the hillside, and which happens where we live, right? And by the time I got home, which was a 10-minute drive, there was fire on everywhere. And I had just enough time to get the kids and the dogs in the car. And I had fire on both sides of me. I raced past my sister's house and said, hope you got out. Raced past my parents' house, hope you got out. And just because my instinct was get these kids to safety. And if fire personnel was not there at Steckel Park, allowing vehicles to get through, because the KOA was evacuating at the same time with all their pop outs out and their hoses flying, we would have all died in the park. And so I vividly know the fear you guys have experienced. I vividly understand the recovery. My house did not burn, but it caught fire in 5 places. At one point, I had wished it would have burned down because of all the work and I feel horribly guilty about that, thinking that now, because there are folks that have not yet been able to rebuild. And so, but at the time I was so overwhelmed with the cleanup. We had to replace our entire irrigation system for our avocados, and the ag passes weren't working. So we literally had to haul pipe to a roadblock, and my dad from the other side would walk up to the roadblock, and we'd walk the pipe over the roadblock so that he could take it to the ranch. And we had no water to the trees for about 3 weeks. We, the embers were still, the wind was still blowing, and the embers would reignite the orchard that, had already burned. And when I say I understand, I absolutely vividly understand. And fire is a real part of what we deal with in this county and in agriculture. And so I can't think of better people to be here today to help share some of the knowledge and experiences that they have, because I know they've been through it and far worse than what I experienced. And we were blessed. We did not lose our home, but we lost outbuildings. And basically the fire department said, I don't know how you still have a home. You should not have a home. I know that also goes through people's minds, is the indiscriminate nature, is like, why did my neighbor's house go and not mine, or why vice versa? And these are all really just difficult questions that we all have to deal with. But wonderful thing about our community is we come together and we help each other when we can. And I think this webinar series is exactly that. So with that, I'd like to give an update. I'll admit the information's a little dated. We have had teams of, I think we have 5 teams out scouting, doing visual surveys, collecting data, making phone calls. Again, we try to be respectful of people knowing that they've lost everything and then they're in the midst of the struggle. So we don't, want to, hey, can you please fill out this form, while their orchard's burning. We understand that. So we try to be respectful of that. This information does take time, but of course everyone wants it immediately. So where we are at the moment, and again, a little dated because I haven't gotten the updated numbers from the last couple days. But we're at $6.3 million in damages. Over 4 of that is in avocados. And I don't need to explain to you, this group, why avocados are a little bit more flammable than, say, citrus. And so the citrus has fared a little bit better, although we've lost, over $1 million in citrus as well. We've lost some raspberries, we've lost some nursery stock, and we've lost quite a bit of rangeland, which, is understandable given where the fire was located. So the wonderful news, I'm sure you've all heard, we did not lose any lives in this fire, thank goodness. And also, no livestock were lost, which was amazing, given the cattle in Balcom Canyon and in different areas. So I did hear of one horse dying, unfortunately, but given where the fire was, I'm very, very happy to hear that we did not lose more. So those are the positive things for us to look at, but also just so appreciative of this webinar and this knowledge that we're going to share together today. So thank you.
Thank you, Corinne. Really appreciate you providing the space for people to meet and also supporting, bringing together all the resources to the community. I think everybody is really appreciative of your support over the last week and really proud to have you as our Ag Commissioner. Lisa and Rachel, I'll turn it over to you.
All
And if you
right.
guys can introduce yourselves too, that would be great.
Yeah, my name's Lisa Tate. I'm a grower in the Santa Paula area, pretty badly affected by the Thomas fire.
I'm Rachel Lehnen, and we farm avocados between Santa Paula and Fillmore. In the Thomas fire, we lost approximately 70 acres of avocados, our house, our barn, all of our farming equipment, and the majority of our irrigation infrastructure as well. So we've been there.
And we just wanted to get together and share what we learned about that fire. We wish we knew then what we know now. We would have done things differently. And so we're hoping that we can just share some of what we've learned with everybody and maybe help. So I guess we'll start. Number one thing is stay safe, because as many of you know, that fire is still burning in little places. And I had a situation where I went and walked out and just the ground crumbled beneath me and I fell into a hot hole that was smoldering because the roots are still burning under there. And I was also walking around and Edison came by and said, "What are you doing? There's power lines down." So I did a lot of really stupid things. So I encourage you to not do that stuff. Be really, really careful where you go. Go with other people so that you have help if you fall into a hole, type of a thing.
I was just gonna say, the amount of fire damage in the orchard and the amount of fire that will still be burning is directly related to the amount of fuel load in your orchard. If it's just leaf litter, the fire will burn through quickly. It'll burn hot and fast. But if you happen to have had wood stacked up or a lot of weed debris or mulch and chips, that will hold the fire for a lot longer.
Yeah, and for example, like we were waiting for the firefighters to come and put out the fire in our orchard, and we waited and waited and waited. And I don't know if it's changed, but at that time, that's not where their priorities were. And so we realized now, looking back, there was a lot that we could do to help our farm sustain less damage had we known. We were kind of on our own for a lot of this. So we kind of put in line what we thought were kind of like step one, what to do. And so the first step was irrigation.
Yeah, so I think the number one thing is if you have a damaged irrigation system, get it repaired as soon as possible. Obviously, if you have an orchard full of dead trees, you're not going to be wanting to irrigate. But if you have any trees that are still alive, getting water back to them will be a priority. Even if you don't have power now, actively getting your irrigation system back up and running will mean that when you do have power, And if you do have trees that survived, you can get water back to them as soon as possible. With avocados particularly, you're gonna wanna be really careful about the amount that you irrigate. Obviously, trees without leaf canopy will use a lot less water. But getting the infrastructure repaired to be able to supply water when you can is a brilliant step one.
Yeah, and then also capping sprinklers, capping hose ends that burned, just you don't want all the water you do have just running wherever.
Yeah, and if you have dead trees, cap the sprinklers that are to those trees or cap the irrigation to those trees so that you're actually only putting water where it's being used.
But unfortunately, most of us don't have options for water in these types of situations. So some things that we learned were I could have saved probably thousands of trees just with a rake had I just removed the leaf litter that was around the avocado trees or the mulch or the weeds that were around them. Just take them away from the trunk, because the fire for us burned the canopies, but then there was a different fire that came along much later that kind of acted as lava, and it just kind of creeped for a long time, because the fire goes for, I didn't know this, but it can burn for like a month after. And so you're still dealing with the fire right now in your orchard in a lot of cases. So
And the risk on that is any fire that gets close to the trunk of the avocado tree will damage the cambium layer, which is the layer of bark that transports the nutrients from the roots up to the canopy. Avocados are rather unique in that once the cambium layer is damaged, it will never regrow. So any sort of heat or burning around the trunk of the tree will cripple that tree for the rest of its life. If you have fire underneath and it sort of burns the underneath side of some of the branches, that's potentially salvageable. You can cut those limbs off and they will regrow, but fundamental trunk damage is crippling.
yeah, so definitely anything you can to take away any fuel from around the trunks of the tree is huge. If I had to say one thing, that would be the one thing I would say to do. The other thing is we found that the fire loved to go along the hose lines. So if you can cut those hose lines or separate it, also just any type of fire breaks wherever possible help. And again, that mulch, that leaf litter, those are prime areas where you can really just move a little bit and make a big difference, just because it won't catch right away.
Yeah, it doesn't take much. All you have to do is just rake a short distance just back to the dirt, just to create a fire break. And even when you have active fire in the orchard, if you don't have huge fuel loads with like limbs and prunings and weeds, just raking through the leaves to the dirt stops the fire pretty quickly and effectively.
Yep.
So the next step is going to be thinking about any sort of aid that you're going to get. So opening a crop insurance claim as soon as possible, and contacting your adjuster and documenting everything, taking a lot of photos. Probably looks pretty awful at the moment, but it will be important to have those photographs. If you have melted valves, damaged irrigation infrastructure, photograph all of that, because documentation will become an important part of your recovery process.
Yeah, and then if anybody's like me, you want to get started with the cleanup right away, and I would just caution to not try to do too much too soon. Because again, you want to make sure till the insurance gets all straightened out and the adjuster has a chance to come and see what you're dealing with. Things are still burning right now. You don't know what the damage is. And also the trees are going to look very different in 2 months than they look right now. And so you could go and start thinking that maybe a tree made it or didn't make it, and it'll look very different.
The other thing is that there are a lot of USDA assistance programs that come through, and we're going to there'll be a lot more information forthcoming about those in the coming webinars. But programs like the Tree Assistance Program and the Emergency Conservation Program, and any other government assistance programs, they require you to make all of the applications first and not do any of the work until your application is approved. So as tempting as it is to get in there right now, if you want to be able to take advantage of those funding opportunities, you need to wait.
Rachel's family did an amazing job with their tree mapping, so she's gonna discuss what she did.
So, we did a pretty intense, damage mapping project, and, we have some of those maps to share. We decided that while we had an instinct of where the fire had been and what trees were damaged and what the fire pattern looked like throughout the orchard, it was more difficult to sort of visualize that over 100 acres. So in the 2 months following the fire, we actively mapped the damage across the whole orchard. We looked at every single tree, we examined every single trunk, and we used a criteria that if the tree had sap oozing out of it, that the cambium layer was damaged and that the tree would need to be replaced. Unfortunately, we had the experience of going through a fire in 96, at which point we didn't replant because the trees were only 20 years old at that point. So we did some replanting and some grafting, which created its own issues. But this time we decided that any tree that was damaged would need to be replaced. So Maureen, I don't know if you're able to want to share any of those maps. So we went through the entire orchard. Every little cross on that map is a tree. We marked green and we marked red. And through that, it gave us a chance to really evaluate the phasing of our replanting, because replanting the entire orchard in 1 year was not going to be possible. It allowed us to also evaluate the damage by irrigation valve and irrigation block, because irrigating different aged trees on one irrigation block is very problematic. A 30-40-year-old tree has way different water and fertilizer needs than a newly replanted tree. And you have to irrigate to the maximum requirement, which means you end up drowning baby trees. So by doing this damage mapping, it allowed us to create a very definitive plan. Anything that was marked more than, I think it was 60 or 70%, any valve that was marked 60 or 70% damaged, we then were able to order and prioritize the areas that we replanted. It's a really tedious and painstaking process in deciding the criteria for damage. It took us a while to refine that, but having been through the fire previously, we knew that if a trunk was damaged, the tree was crippled and would need to be replaced.
Yeah, and so talking about trees and replanting, it takes 2 years to get a tree to you in most cases. So if you know what your tree counts are, or if you have an estimate, it's good to start getting your orders into your nursery as soon as possible, so that in 2 years you are ready to start planting.
I know that Brokaw are actively looking at their production and what they're able to supply. I think they were almost sold out already for 2026. The Avocado Commission has done a little bit of work in terms of how many acres were damaged. And we're looking at over 1,000 acres of avocados that were damaged. So I remember after the Thomas fire, basically having a permanent chair in Brokaw's sales office as we were negotiating for tree orders. But what it also did was allowed us to make a full reevaluation of everything that we were doing in terms of crop type. Should we even be growing avocados in this location? What rootstock should we be growing? What variety of fruit? And all of those decisions were part of the overall decision making as we approached replanting.
Hey,
then-
Rachel. What kind of software did you use to do this mapping?
Well, I don't want to scare anybody because it was super high tech. We just used Excel. I mean, like
Mhm.
really, really basic. So that was all done in Excel cells.
I've done similar mapping too, and I just like, will go on Google Earth and just, then I use like Publisher's easier than Word, but I've done it on Word too, and just make a little text box for each tree and color that. So you don't need fancy software to do it.
And I cannot take credit for all of this mapping. My father had actually already created the maps in general after the 96 fire. And it looks way more complicated than it is, but the way we did it is walked down the edge of each block, and I counted, or like we counted the first row across and said like, okay, 34 trees across. And then as we walked down, it was like 1 tree in, okay, 2 trees at that level, 1 tree out, 2 trees. And then so we just sort of mapped the edges, and then we're able to map the trees all the way through the block.
So it
I'm not
seems
that-
like, just to quickly summarize, it seems like if you're anxious to get started, as I'm sure many people are, enter your field safely in groups so that if something does happen, you have an emergency plan, and that people need to know where you are and what your time expectation is to not be there. And then maybe capping off your irrigation, and while you're doing that, assessing the damage and creating your map and taking photos. If you cap off something, it's probably worth taking a photo of. If you're marking
Yeah.
something red on a map, it's probably worth taking a photo of, because you're just building this giant pile of evidence that you can bring forward to your insurance company, but also to these recovery grant programs and other kinds of assistance. Is that a good summary?
Yeah, there are also just a few like things to look out for. Speak with your accountant as soon as possible, because the accounting on fire recovery and the tax code is super complicated. The sooner you get your CPA involved in what you're doing, the more valuable it will be.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that a little bit, but before we get off of the part of damaged trees, I just wanted to, I can't begin to understand how an avocado is going to work in this situation, but what I can say is 2 years after the fire, the trees that we left had this incredible super bloom, and we had a huge crop. And I know a lot of people had that same thing happen. And so I would hate for people to go and start cutting down their trees early and start ripping stuff out and miss that potential opportunity before you even have other trees available to go into the ground. So that's another reason to just kind of hold off and wait. We did talk about like they're going to lose all their leaves.
Yeah.
And you are gonna want to whitewash the trunks of the ones that you think have a chance of surviving so that they're protected from the sun. And then another thing to know is that animals lost their habitat in this fire as well, and they are looking for shelter, they're looking for food, and they're going to come at you in numbers you've never seen before. And also when you're replanting, we had deer, I mean, just crazy amounts of deer, to the point where we had to put up 8-foot plus deer fence around either huge blocks or around, in one ranch, we just did the whole ranch because there was so much replanting that we had to do. Because as soon as we started replanting the avocados, they would be eaten right away. So, just
And-
something to note.
And I guess the point on deer eating them is that the deer have an enzyme in their mouth that will kill an avocado tree, kill a baby avocado tree. So when they start chewing on the branches, it's enough to kill a young newly planted tree.
Yeah, so just know as you're going in and you're starting your plans that fencing may not have been an issue before when you replanted, but it probably will be at this time. So now getting into accounting,
Yeah, so,
so much about accounting is really important.
yeah, so we, you'll never realize, I mean, I can't say enough to document things. In our accounting system, we ended up setting up separate coding accounts. So we had irrigation repairs and maintenance, and then we had irrigation repairs and maintenance, Thomas Fire. So all of the, I mean, we had to literally buy everything from a shovel to paintbrush to tractor. So tracking all of those expenses that were incurred specifically because of the Thomas Fire was really important. But that's why I said, get your CPA involved as soon as
Yeah,
possible,
and not-
because the tax code, the
Yeah.
tax code on reinvestments is incredibly complex. And there are very set timelines. And when your time starts is different depending on when you receive insurance proceeds and things like that, but definitely get your accountant in the loop ASAP.
And not just your normal accountant necessarily, because we were given bad advice by so-called experts in fire, litigation, accounting, who did not really give us the information that would have been helpful. So,
The good news is that there are a lot of accountants here in the county that are
have
now,
experience, yeah.
have now become very experienced
But
with
make
this.
sure they understand because it's different when you have something like this. So, you're gonna need your books to work for a variety of different things. You're gonna need it for insurance. You're gonna need it for your general tax prep, which is gonna look different now. And then you're also, if we don't know if you'll be in a lawsuit at this stage or not, but that's a very different, type of accounting setup and record keeping. And then also for the grants. So they all need all the information, but they all need it in different ways. So one of the things that we did, like what Rachel said, is we had separate accounts for equipment, supplies, labor. You need to keep track of all this time you're putting in, even just assessing that you need to document your hours that you're working, doing all of that kind of stuff. Because those are real expenses that you're incurring.
And many of those hours can be reimbursable under some of the USDA programs.
We kept, anytime we got a receipt, we just kept a note, we made a photocopy and we kept a notebook that just had a copy of anything that was fire related. And then we also just made a spreadsheet that had, a lot of information on it, you know, the date, the vendor, what we bought, what it was used for, or what the reason we got it for, and then, the amount. And it's really nice to be able to search it because, you'll need to later on. So, whatever you design, make sure that you can sort and search in different ways. It's really, really important. And if you do it correctly now, it will save you so much time later on. So, so that's good. And then, anything else on the accountant stuff?
No.
The other thing is, many of us are in the situation where we need money to get this going, so starting to like shop around for a lender might be something that many of us needed to do, so
We had a really great experience, I mean, working with AgWest or Farm Credit as it was back in the day. You know, if you can find a lender that is very familiar with ag, that is super valuable. There are also resources through USDA, and I'm not very familiar with them, so hopefully in some of our future series, the people can talk about those, but sometimes small business loans or loans from the USDA services, but there are resources and options out there. Yeah, it takes a really long time to get the funding back for some of these, like tree assistance program and ECP.
yeah, and you don't know if you're gonna be in a lawsuit at this stage or not, but we just know you don't need to sign on with the law firm immediately. Rachel was saying you have what, 2 years?
Yeah,
So you have plenty of time to decide, so you don't need to feel pressured into making a decision right away about that.
talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, talk to people who've been through it before. Because selecting, as with everything, selecting the right person to work with you, that fits your personality and the way you do business is very important.
And then we just wanted to share kind of the timeline because this is a very long process and it will probably span decades. And you're in that stage where it's the same thing as with COVID. It was before COVID and after COVID, it's going to be before the mountain fire and after the mountain fire. And that's kind of where your scope of reference is going to be in a lot of cases. We're 7 years in from the Thomas fire and we're still making plenty of decisions and changes related to that. It was, and just to give you an idea, it was over 5 years before we received any settlement. So just, again, we don't know what the circumstances are of this fire, but that's a long time to go without receiving money. So those grants are really, really important.
I was gonna
The
say-
lender.
Yeah,
Really important.
I think the timeline on like the USDA funding was a little bit faster. There, at the time for Thomas Fire, there was a program called WIP, which was Wildfire and Hurricane Indemnity Program. That funded incredibly quickly, I think within the first year. TAP Tree Assistance Program, that only funds once you have done some replanting, and at the time, I think it paid like $8 a tree. ECP only funds after you have done the work, so the timeline is long.
It's fun, yeah.
Yeah.
And we just wanted to share that, like, just emotionally, what we went through was very difficult. But there were a lot, and I mean a lot of great things that did come out of it. Number one for me was friendships. I mean, we built a community and that community is still thriving and it's made us better farmers. And there's a lot of people, you're not going through this alone. There's a lot of people going through it with you. So talk to each other and build that, because it's really nice when you're saying, oh, what lawyer did you go through? Oh, do you have an accountant that specializes in this? Oh, what do I need to know about taxes that I didn't know? You know, so just, and use the Thomas Fire people as resources too. We're happy to share our stories, way more in depth in a more private setting. So definitely reach out. And the other part is that you, at the end of this, or even in the middle of it, you end up with improved systems, younger trees, a better orchard. My farm is way better now than it was before we started. I got to do it my way. I laid out things in a way that made sense to me. So there's that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and there are definitely silver linings and there are definitely gonna be long and hard days. But like Lisa, I think our orchard is in a much better position now. We, like I mentioned earlier, we took a step back and we reevaluated everything. Having the opportunity now to plant with clonal rootstocks is incredible. Our entire orchard originally was planted in the 70s on Mexican seedling, and while it was phenomenal producer, we were starting to think about replanting some of our weaker blocks. Ironically, the one block that suffered no damage was actually going to be the block that we were going to replace first. But we went back in at a higher density. We went back in with clonal rootstock. We opted to just go back straight in with all Hass, because we knew for us, it was going to be, we were going to be balancing on a knife edge for 7 to 10 years, about whether we were going to be able to make it financially. And we knew we just needed a variety that was going to be commercially productive and financially viable. So those are all decisions, all factors that play into the decisions that you need to make as you're reevaluating.
And I don't think a lot of people understand like the real situation you have going on here. Some of you lost your homes, but some of you lost your homes and your businesses. And that's rough. There's no going around. That is rough and really, really scary. And like I said, I definitely wouldn't want to do it again. And watching it happen to you was traumatic for me because it brought back all of those feelings and fears. But again, we did come out better in a lot of ways. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. And I hope that you can see that, it will be okay.
Yeah, and be patient because it does take time. We are 7 years in, we've replanted 70 acres so far. Through the process, we were able to actually acquire a neighbor's ranch and expand our acreage by 50%. Which also needed replanting as well. But I tell you, we celebrate every year, September 11th, because that is the day that the first tree went in the ground. And so every year on that day, all of our employees come and we stand around that first tree. So we have a record year on year on year of how much that orchard grew from just one stick with a few leaves on it to now we can't even get all of the team around it because the trees are so big. So celebrate those successes along the way. And it is really overwhelming if you have lost everything, house and farming equipment and orchard. I've told this story several times in the last few days, but I remember standing in Target, buying things like toothpaste and socks and looking around and people were Christmas shopping and the carols were playing and everybody was happening and standing there thinking, how the heck is the world going on normally when our world has completely fallen apart? But it doesn't last for very long. And the more you rebuild, the more you accomplish. And the more you see those new vigorous trees in the ground, every day gets better.
Wow, that was
That's
really,
amazing.
really powerful, Rachel.
Maureen, do you want us to answer any questions right now, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, if people don't mind putting some questions into the chat, that would be great. If you have them, you can also raise your hand and I can make it so you can speak. We have a couple people who are interested in taking you up on your offer to connect outside of the Zoom. So I guess the first question would be, how can people get in touch with you?
I'm happy to share my email address and you can email me and we can set up a call or whatever people feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
Alternatively, because I know you're like private citizens, I could offer my contact info and then forward you the emails if that works better, whatever you guys feel comfortable with.
That's fine. You can reach out to us through our website. It's kimballavocados.com. Our fire story is on the website if you want to read a bit more about it. The other thing that I was going to mention is that the Avocado Commission is also another great resource for information for avocado recovery. And we are talking about putting together an in the grove conversation, visiting an orchard that has been damaged in the mountain fire, getting people together and all of us on site in person, looking at damage and talking about replanting and rebuilding. So if you guys have interest in that, there was a green sheet email that went out earlier this week, last week, I don't know, in the last few days. But if you go to CaliforniaAvocadoGrowers.com, you can sign up for the green sheets there and make sure you get that information because there's nothing like having a conversation in the grove with people who've been through it too, so.
And my email address is lisa@californiacoffee.com. So I'm happy to chat with anyone.
Maureen, while maybe the questions are coming into the chat, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about cleanup. So I know one of the things that we encountered because we had to put in our whole irrigation system, which again, you talk about silver linings. We had an above ground irrigation system after the Thomas Fire. We now have a buried underground irrigation system, which is much more sustainable. But in doing so, you're digging through ash, you're digging through soil. And the Santa Anas, at least for several weeks after were continuing to blow. So I think it's important to keep in mind, you know, our farm workers in this process who will be helping, with the recovery. And I just want to emphasize that we have the N95 masks available for free. We've been assured that we can get a consistent supply. So I just want to throw that out there for all of you who are dealing with this and looking at recovery and, you know, perhaps having to dig through the soil and while there's ash and other things going on, it'd be important to keep that in mind.
Yeah, I think our farm workers were incredible. I can't even thank them enough for what they did throughout that process.
We were so close to Christmas, and all of our employees had family vacations booked to go down to Mexico. They canceled everything and the guys worked straight through Christmas, every Saturday, every Sunday until we were back on our feet. We did it as a team. I mean, it's really challenging this time of year because we have very short daylight hours, but they were up there with us before the sun came up and working with us there until the day was finished.
Another thing I wanted to throw out there, and maybe you guys have some thoughts on, is Satakoy Lemon reached out to me and said that the food safety mitigation for smoke damage is typically just a wash process that follows under the Food Safety Modernization Act. And so if you are, you know, moving into harvest and you're worried about any sort of contamination on the fruit, that wash system that typically avocados and lemons go through is sufficient. I don't know about things like raspberries or other sort of commodities, but I wanted to throw that out there in case you guys had any thoughts about it.
The one thing I would say about avocados is we're kind of in that like growing period where the fruit isn't actually ready to be harvested yet. I've had a lot of questions with people reaching out saying, oh, all of the windfall fruit on the ground, can we come and glean it? Can we use it? Can we sell it? From a food safety perspective, any piece of fruit that hits the ground is not marketable. And from a USDA dry matter standard at the moment, none of the sizes have been released. So technically, none of the fruit is deemed edible. So unfortunately, everything that is on the ground, whether it's from wind or fire damage, just needs to compost back into the soil.
Right. So we don't have any questions in the chat. A lot of thank yous to you guys for, you know, your amazing stories. And I wanted to see Ben Faber. I know you just joined. We talked a little bit about, you know, putting water on the trees, but we didn't really go into the agronomic, you know, recovery. Do you mind sharing a little bit about your thoughts on tree health after wildfire?
Yeah, we had a avocado commission meeting out at Pine Tree the day of the fire, Wednesday. And basically I said, don't do anything. And, you know, people want to do out, they want to start pruning, they want to start irrigating. And, you know, with these winds, you know, the ground did get dried out, but if you've got fire damaged trees without any leaves on it, the tree can't pump that water out of the ground. So you've got to use irrigation water judiciously to avoid setting up the trees for avocado root rot. So, you know, always go out and check your soil moisture before you start turning on the irrigation. You know, that's a natural inclination is to, I need to re-wet these trees, and they may not need it. And you could make the system worse. And starting to prune the trees now is way too early. There's going to be issues that come up with the first heat waves we get in July, August, and hopefully not in May or June, but the trees will flush out growth and then they'll collapse again. So you don't want to be going in there pruning it a second time. And the thing is, those dead leaves or the leaves that are just hanging right there, they're protecting the trees from sunburn damage. So there's a greater threat right now of getting sunburn damage to trees than the actual fire damage. So, you know, once you start exposing wood that has been in the shade up until now, you want to get out there and whitewash it maybe. So it's really a kind of dancing act you do out there. It's like, you know, you treat this tree differently from that tree and this tree differently from that tree. And by golly, an avocado tree has an incredible fortitude to come back from fire damage. Although I just saw a picture of some 5 or 6 year old trees that were goners, you know, they're just not going to come back. And citrus tends to be that way as well. It's got a thinner bark than avocados. And if you see very much fire damage to a citrus tree, you know, if you can see 50% of the bark gone, it's not going to come back, or it's not going to be an economically viable revival of the tree. So that's my advice: is don't do anything. Watch the trees.
Yeah, it seems like the instinct I think we would all have is to start farming. And
Yeah.
what we really need to do, which farmers don't like to do, is document, document, document.
Yeah.
Right? Does anyone have any questions? You can raise your hand or throw them in the chat or in the Q&A. In the meantime, let's see. We do have a question for Dr. Faber. How do you reconcile the concept that trees recover when the ranchers state that the damaged trees are totaled?
Well, again, avocados have a tremendous ability to come back, whereas citrus has a lesser ability. And it all depends on the heat of the fire, the location, the age of the tree. So,
This is kind of getting to what you were saying, Rachel, about like coming up with an assessment or a criteria for whether something's damaged or not. If it's leaking sap, if the trunk is damaged, then that's different than if just some of the canopy has been burned.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to come out and help growers assess the extent of the damage to their trees.
Yeah, our experience was that, having been through the fire in 96, there were a lot of trees that we thought, okay, they'll be fine, they'll recover. And yes, they go through a cycle where Lisa talked about, they'll super bloom and they'll set a bunch of fruit and then they will fall over and die, or they will never set fruit again. They will not be productive again. So that was our experience previously and what we used going into the recovery from the Thomas Fire. Again, our trees were that much older. They were, like I said, planted in the late 70s. So by 2017, we were struggling with some tree health issues anyway. So that was all part of the decision-making factors and what we used to evaluate the damage. So like we said, if the trunk was damaged, if the trunk was oozing sap, that was enough information for us to know that that tree was never going to be commercially productive again. If we saw damage on the underside of, I think we said if it was more than 3 limbs, then we would replace the tree. Probably pretty ruthless. I think if the trunk is fine and you have limb damage, you can cut the limbs off and the tree can survive and regrow.
But I think the reality of it is most people are not going to be able to go and just replant their entire farm
No.
in the next 5 years. You're going to have to pick and choose, kind of like a triage, what areas you're going to focus on. And you'll see, like, there were some that we just let grow. There were some that we just kind of stumped to see what would happen. And then there were some that we knew we needed to pull out. And the ones that I've stumped, sure, there are some that grew back beautifully, and then there's one right next to it that is never gonna grow back. So it's really hard to judge, and when you're talking about 100 acres or 50 acres, that's a big area, and so you have to just kind of like do your best, just there's no right and wrong answer in this. It's just kind of figure out what you can do, what you can't do, and kind of live with it.
And what's gonna work for you in that particular moment. Like I said, in the 96 fire, we had Hank Brokaw come out and he walked the orchard and he said to my dad, this whole block needs to be replanted. At the time, we couldn't financially afford it, so we took out the dead trees and replanted those. We grafted rootstock suckers, and then we left the trees that were undamaged. It was a nightmare to manage. We over irrigated and got root rot started in that block. So again, it was a hard lesson, but it informed our decision making this time around. And boy, next time we're gonna know everything about what to do.
No more next time.
I think another piece of advice that weighs in on this conversation is like, you don't have to make decisions or accept payouts right now. You don't have all the information. And so going through and taking your time to really understand what the damages are is an important factor. So, I don't want to be too strong in the statements, but the motivation of the insurance companies is to pay out the least amount possible, right? So you have to advocate for yourself, and it might take time to do that advocacy, and you might not necessarily know the full impact. So I would hate for
Yeah.
people to just jump in and be like, this is what it is, I'm getting back to work, and then they find out it's double that.
And there's simple things that you don't know, like you check one box on your accounting stuff and you save yourself hundreds of thousands of dollars later on because you've moved your losses forward. So like just things that we didn't know, we messed up, and we could have had that money to help us, but we don't because we didn't do it right. Those are the things we want to make sure that you guys don't fall into.
So we do have someone in the Q&A who has elevated that they lost their orchard, and they're not going to be able to farm anytime soon. So they have 3,000 Haas Loyola trees that were ready to be delivered in March that are up for grabs. They need to find a buyer so that they don't have to pay the fee for not receiving those trees. So if you want to contact me, I can help you get in touch with this person if you're interested
I
in
don't think
working
you're
it
gonna have
out.
any trouble selling those trees.
Yeah, I think a big part of the conversation is to really work with the nurseries, and because
Brokaw
they,
lost a lot of their own trees on their own farms. They understand.
yeah, and they are absolute magicians in that sales office, in terms of shuffling and juggling and trees available and rerouting and swapping orders and things like that. So I would say in the first instance, get yourself into that office, make friends. We took a lot of cookies but the big thing is, pay your deposits, because as soon as you put your money down, then those trees are going to be held for you. So, hopefully Brokaw can really help facilitate moving on those 3,000 trees for you.
Great.
Oh, and also the other resource I was gonna say, I know Ben has very kindly offered to come out and help, but Brokaw do as well have some resources that Dan and Daniel who can come help you evaluate fire damage and also help you in the decision-making process about what you should replant, what rootstocks, and what varieties. And if avocados is really the right thing. Because it could be that just some beautiful orange trees planted 40 feet apart will create a lovely place for you to live.
And protect your house better.
Yes.
Great. I thought we should take just a second and maybe go around, and if you're associated with a resource here in the county, you could introduce yourself. And so maybe I will call on some people. I think everybody's been elevated to be able to speak. If you're a resource that isn't available or isn't able to speak, just raise your hand and I can elevate you as the host here. So Jamie and Kevin, would you mind just introducing yourself, who you work for, and that'd be great.
Thanks, Maureen. Hello, everyone. My name is Jamie Whiteford. I'm the Executive Director for the Ventura County Resource Conservation District. Kevin?
Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin Mason. I'm the Fire Preparedness Coordinator for Ventura County Resource Conservation District. And I'm pretty new here. I just started last week.
And Maureen, I'll also note, I'm sure you can see on your end, we actually do have a fair number of our ag team here and available. I don't know if you want to go ahead and just open the floor.
Yeah,
Okay. I'll go ahead and, oh, I'm sorry.
go ahead, Jamie, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, Emily, if you're available, if you don't mind unmuting, just to say hi, and introducing yourself. And then we also, if you don't mind, Emily, passing it on to the rest of the team. I see John, and I thought I saw Emma as well.
Hi there, this is Emily. Emily Nye from the Ventura County RCD. I'm the Agricultural and Environmental Sustainability Specialist. I didn't even realize you guys could see me on here today, but I'm happy to take calls from farmers and directing them to the resources that our community partners have been providing. And as we at the RCD are able to seek out funding opportunities to address your needs, we will keep you in the loop on those opportunities. I'll pass it over to Emma.
Hi, everyone. I work with Emily, John, Jamie, and Kevin at the Ventura County RCD. And yeah, we have potential grant opportunities that we're applying for that could possibly help support farmers that were affected by the fire. So as soon as we hear back about those, we will definitely make it available to the county. Thank you, everyone.
And RCD is on the agenda for Monday, so we'll get deep into what they do and how they can help the community at that time.
And I'll just pass it to John really quick. Sorry, I forgot he was there.
It's okay. Hi, everyone. My name's John Zekwa. I work for the Ventura County Resource Conservation District, and we're honestly just going to try to help you guys out as much as we can in this whole process. And yeah.
Great. Thank you. So next, if you don't mind just saying your title and who you are, that would be great. Dave Ward, would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Maureen. Hello, everyone. I'm Dave Ward. I'm the County Planning Director. Again, really sorry for the losses that most of you are experiencing. As Lisa indicated, both homes and property, crops, there's so much. We're here to assist and help. My planning team has already been working on collecting information, trying to prepare ourselves for the questions and needs that you all will have, including temporary housing options, looking at ways to house any farm workers that may have lost structures as well. So we are in collection mode, and today I appreciate Maureen and also Louise encouraging me to participate so I could hear if there were things directly. But I want to be of assistance, and I will participate on Monday. The local assistance center is opening up tomorrow. I'll be at the community event tonight. And again, will be any questions that come up that you need or are seeking input about, I'm all ears to hear that, so we can try to provide a way to support you as quickly as possible. I know there are many, many steps in all of this, and I'm a veteran of the Thomas Fire, unfortunately, but we've learned a lot through each of these fire incidents, and so that helps us be more prepared, and we learn each time on how to do it better. And as Supervisor Gorell had that always on, but it indicated the board made clear yesterday, they're really focused on how to move the recovery as fast as possible and ways to do that even more efficiently than in the times past. So look forward to supporting you any way that I can. Thank you.
Great. Brooks, do you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, I'm Brooks Englehart, the district conservationist with the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service. And we've already receiving contacts from growers, so we work with the Farm Service Agency. They have an emergency program. We'll be talking about that next week, I believe. And we also have the environmental quality incentives program that can also be used. So there is an application deadline this Friday for the start for the first round. So if anybody wants to contact me, go ahead. Or I guess if you contact Maureen, she knows how to get a hold of me too. So that's it. Thank
Brooks, you said it was this Friday, as in like 2 days from now?
Yeah, that's our general one. The one everybody over in the Cayugas Creek watershed, that application deadline will go on beyond this Friday.
Okay.
So, but people can still apply for EQIP, because sometimes when we have these disasters, our state conservationist comes up with a disaster EQIP program.
Mm-hmm.
So between NRCS and FSA, there could be some funding available.
Great.
Yep.
And then Jordan, you're with NRCS, is that right? Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Jordan Atmore. I work with Brooks at the Natural Resources Conservation Service. Like I said, we're just going to be directing people to the right help they can get. We're helping out the FSA. Hopefully, we do have our own emergency EQIP program that comes out as well. We also do have some specialists in post-fire erosion control and drainage management that give advice to people after post-fire. So that could be something we can help out with too. People just want to contact us, get you in contact with the right people.
Great. Annemie, could you introduce yourself?
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Annemiek Schilder. I used to be county director, but now I'm director only of the Hansen Agricultural Research and Extension Center. I also want to, express that I'm very sorry for all the losses that have occurred. And also want to commend everyone, especially Rachel and Lisa, for giving this really wonderful presentation to help the current people who are facing these problems. As far as the Hansen Agricultural Research and Extension Center, we're still setting up, but if anybody needs conference room space, they can come over. We're in Camarillo off Central Avenue on Beersley Road. We can offer conference space in our conference room if you need to. And I don't know if there's any research or education that can come out of this experience. We will have our Thelma Hansen grant program, which offers $10,000 for education projects and $25,000 for research projects. That call for proposals will happen later this month. If there's anything that people want to use to develop a project through this experience, I know there's more important things to think about, but this could be something that might help. So thank you.
Great. Ray Bowman, do you want to speak?
Yes. Hello, everyone. And thank you for putting this program together. Just so much great information. I'm with the Economic Development Collaborative. I'm the director of our Small Business Development Center. So we provide free of charge assistance to medium and small sized businesses. We're very active, during the Thomas Fire, during the Malibu Fire. We also assisted the county in a hotline during the pandemic. So unfortunately, we have a lot of practice with this, but we're here to assist businesses. Our telephone number is 805-409-9159. One of the questions, it's the most frequent question we get during an incident like this is, when can I apply for EIDL? When can I start, working with FEMA? And again, we need a federal declaration for those to come into play. So the federal declaration usually doesn't come till after the incident's over. So right now, I think the fire's a little over 60% contained. So once it's fully contained, then the expectation, at least from what I'm hearing, is that there will be a declaration, and then those SBA products will be available, such as the EIDL loan, the assistance for residents, as well as the FEMA assistance. And thank you for also mentioning too, we've had a lot of people during the other fires, they did all this cleanup and then they wanted to file claims, and then there was nothing to see, no documentation of damage. So I think it is important to kind of prepare yourself and well document, the damage that you have and what you're going through. And, FEMA can be a big help in those assessments as well.
So we have a couple questions in the chat that I wanted to bring up. If you're an organization and I did not call on you, please raise your hand so I can give you an opportunity to introduce yourself. Okay, Jordan, go ahead. Oh, sorry, Tony, go ahead. For some reason, I can't interpret Zoom. Tony, go ahead, sorry.
Good morning, my name is Tony Achapenti, Battalion Chief of our Wildland and Aviation Division for the Ventura County Fire Department. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to jump on. First, I understand the traumatic event the last week and a half has been, and offer my sincerest condolences. It has been dynamic, to say the least, and I recognize the impact that this will have for much longer than the last week and a half to all of you. I did want to offer some bits of information that, in the name of keeping everyone informed on what to expect from the fire department moving forward, might be valuable. So we're still actively engaged on a daily basis with the fire suppression side of things. We have folks out there currently, as we speak, engaging in suppression efforts, as well as our fire suppression repair and rehab. You may have seen folks out and around your properties. I know our vegetation management planner, Ryan Matheson, has been out with our heavy equipment operators, reopening road systems and conducting whatever repair that we can. So anticipate that to continue. As we transition into the weekend, the current incident management team that is here in the county will be transitioning the fire back to solely back to the Ventura County Fire Department. We will still have folks available and engaging. What I will say is, if anybody has any concerns, or as was spoken about earlier, has any active fire or anything that's still smoldering that you feel needs to be addressed, please reach out to us. The easiest way to do that is to dial 911. And I'll also pass on my phone number at the end of the call, but we are happy to come out and address any of the issues that you're concerned with. I wanted to speak to the fire reduction efforts that the Ag Department spoke to earlier, and from my perspective, that's absolutely appropriate. Just raking around the trees has the potential to save any of those trees that are threatened by that ground movement of fire. And much like we ask folks to conduct their FHRP weed abatement around the structures, I would propose that orchards sort of, they demand the same sort of responsibility, and clearing around will have huge effects on mitigating the effects of fire to those. So I would continue advocating that because that will certainly help. The other thing that is on our radar that we are actively engaging in is preparing for whatever this winter brings by way of rainfall. We've also been part of and sustained the effects of 2 heavy years of rainfall and what that looks like. So just understand we're out there, we're aware of it. We're anticipating potential impacts to the fire area, and so that means everything from heavy equipment out there, engaging in that, trying to get prepared, but also sandbagging efforts as we get closer to those rainfall periods, and ensuring that culverts are cleaned out and any of those diversion areas are well prepared to receive water. A couple other just brief things I wanted to touch on. If anybody has had issues with the Ag Pass program over the past week, please reach out either to myself or to Patrick Maynard from County OES. The intent behind that program is to give each of you access during periods of emergency activity. And we had a brief conversation the other day about that. The direction was at any of the traffic control points, individuals who have and possess and can present an Ag Pass should be granted authority to go beyond that traffic control point. So if that was an issue, please make us aware of that so we can address it moving forward. And if anybody is having issues getting their water up and running, or really anything at all that we can assist with, please don't hesitate to reach out. And I'll give you my phone number right now if anybody wants to capture that. It's area code 805-914-8642. Again, it's 805-914-8642. My name is Tony, and again, with the Ventura County Fire Department. Thank you.
Tony,
Thanks so much for joining, Tony. I know that it was a last minute request, and we really appreciate you taking the time out of your really busy schedule to speak to this community.
Absolutely, and understand that we have a vested interest in supporting whatever the needs are. We're an all risk agency, and so whatever it is, please feel free to reach out to us. We are here to support each and every one of you, whatever that looks like, and that may be as simple as just being a conduit of relationships to connect you with whomever you may need to get a hold of. So thank you, guys.
I just wanted to, Tony brought up a really good point about the rains coming, and we wanted to touch a little bit on that erosion control issue, because your drainage might be all messed up now, probably is all messed up. We had lots of pipes melt, and so as you're going through recovery, try to think about where this water is going to flow when it comes.
And I think it's also something that I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I think NRCS can probably help you guys with evaluations on potential erosion control risks, and then potential mitigations.
And then a thank you for the Ag Pass comment, Tony, because I know we're trying to get it on the agenda for the Ag Policy Advisory Committee for January, because we do want to do like a wrap up, like kind of how did that work, and share those stories.
Yeah, absolutely. Knowing it's a relatively new program, we want it to be as successful as possible.
Another question that might span a variety of people's expertise that's been entered. What about the destroyed structures which are classified as hazardous materials, requiring a permit and removal by licensed hazardous material contractors? Can anyone speak to what that process looks like? I don't know if that's a Dave Ward question or somebody else.
So that's a Charles Genkel question from Environmental Health. I think he's heading that debris cleanup process. And so we might see if he can join one of these days and talk about that, because that has to do with the cleanup of the residential structures and not ag cleanup, but a lot of people have both. And we certainly did in the Thomas fire. We had residential cleanup as well as ag cleanup. So we can see if we can have him join in one of our sessions coming up.
Yeah, I can help speak with Charles about that and see if he can come to the one on the 18th, or your one just on the December 6th.
Great. Happy to have him at either.
And I just want to mention that Louise is here with CoLab, and she is actually the inspiration for this meeting. So I just wanted to thank her for thinking about all of us in our times of need. It's nice to know we have a friend there.
Oh, well, thank you, Lisa. Appreciate it. Louise Lampera, Ventura County CoLab. We are just committed to working with our very good partner, Farm Bureau, to try to get as much information out as possible, provide as many helpful links to more information, the ag damage assessment form, et cetera. Any information that you are not seeing distributed, but think that it would be valuable, please reach out to either Maureen or myself. My phone number is 805-797-5679. My email is LLAMPARA@colab, B as in Victor, C as in Charles.org. And I want to, a lot of you know CoLab focuses a lot on regulatory oversight, permitting and the like. And I want to give a shout out, all of our conversations with folks at the county so far, the supervisors, Dave, the RMA department, there is very much a spirit of what can we do to make it easier and faster for people to rebuild and to get back to some semblance of normalcy. So any issues that as the rebuild begins, that people are having, please feel free to reach out. I am happy to, take any concerns to Dave or to, whoever at the county. But I do want to assure people that, what we are hearing from the county is very positive, and that the county is working hard to help people.
Great. I'm gonna promote Steve Holt to speak. Go ahead, Steve. You're on mute.
Yeah. Okay, a couple questions. One to the fire guy from Tony. Hey, I have a large ranch on South Mountain Road. We have cattle and quite a few avocados and citrus trees. And during the fire, they were not allowing us to go through. We couldn't feed the cattle. We had a couple calves almost die because of it. And they said it was because of you, the fire department wouldn't let us through. So I'd like to have that addressed.
Yeah, absolutely. Just for my own awareness, do you or are you registered with the Ag Pass program?
No.
Okay, so that would certainly be something to initiate a conversation with the Ag Department about. We'll make sure that we get you registered, and we will have classes coming up. And maybe the Ag Department can speak to this, but I believe you guys issue emergency Ag Passes during the incident. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's correct. So we have the incident specific pass, and then the pre-incident pass. So a lot of our agricultural operators who have been through this before opted for the pre-incident pass because they know it's just a matter of time before, sadly, we need this. And so that pre-incident pass, we were able to have, it was an online class that you needed to take, and then we were able to do some in-person classes in both English and Spanish. So a lot of people took advantage of that. We've had like 4 or 5 of those sessions. But knowing that, some people weren't able to do that, we also offered the incident specific pass, which is available. A couple glitches just to be mindful of, because this was the first event where we actually used this. The pass was only dated for 24 hours from when you when you were approved. And so we're going to need to talk to Patrick Maynard with OES to adjust that so we can give it like a 2-week period of time or a week period of time at least, so that it covers that that time period. However, I think people in the county understand that we have this Ag Pass program and we are still working out some of the glitches. So even if you get an incident specific pass and it has expired, I'm assuming it will be honored because we know that that's a glitch that we need to work out. So Mr. Holt, I would recommend that you go ahead and do that. And so you can do that through, if you go to the VC emergency website, there's a link there. Or if you just Google Ventura County Ag Pass, it should pop up. So you should be able to go ahead and do that and get that pass if you're not able to get access now.
And encourage your employees to do it too, so they can help. Yeah.
Yeah, because this is the first time I've heard of this pass. I think there's probably a lot of people that don't know about this pass yet. And if with the rains coming, we're really gonna need the pass.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we try to spread awareness. I mean, Ventura County was was the first county in the state to implement this program. We've had it available in different renditions for decades. But you know, it's one of those things where you maybe don't, know about it until you need it. And then once you've needed it, you know about it. So we're just very grateful to have the program up and running again and make that available to you. So we'll send out an email blast again. If you're a cattle operator, you're not necessarily on our radar, but we work through Ventura County Cattlemen's Association for that. But if you have a permit with us, you should be receiving our emails, and we can do another, reminder that these passes are available, and we are planning another in-person class after the first of the year. So because it's been a very popular program since we got it up and running again.
And
That was
Corinne,
the part two of my question was, what is the consequences with Edison shutting our power down? I know they had nothing to do with the fire, but they're shutting our power down, limiting our access to water. So all my damage really came from the fact that Edison had our power off, and so therefore we couldn't run irrigation. This is the first time in 4 fires we've ever had any damage, because this is the first time they preemptively shut the power down.
I think that goes back to the document thing. What couldn't you do, and then why, right? Because it's not your fault that the power was out.
Right.
And also, Mr. Holt, just to add to that, I mean, every time the wind blows, my power goes out now. Every single time, because we were part of that Thomas Fire group. So I have a feeling that's going to be the future of our county. They're going to turn power off more and more often. So we need to be thinking about that and preparing for that in the future.
Well,
so that was
to add to that, the restaurants in Simi Valley get paid $5,000 a day when they turn the power off. I'm not receiving anything when they turn the power off. So that's one thing the ag department should look at is, are we going to start getting compensated? Because they're actually saving themselves at our expense.
Yeah, and we're happy to help facilitate. That's that's not really our jurisdiction, but we're happy to help connect dots and be the liaison. But that unfortunately that might be something that's done through litigation.
I think too, like, connect with whatever your favorite advocacy organization is, if that's the Cattlemen Association or CoLab or Farm Bureau or, Ventura County Ag Association. Those are the kinds of issues that I think are on the advocacy side that we definitely want to gather and elevate so our elected officials can think about long-term ways to promote resiliency in our community. So I would say if you're feeling disconnected and you don't have the information you need, reach out to Louise or Rob Roy or Bev Bigger or myself. And, that's part of the service that you get as being a part of each of those different organizations, is this sort of opportunity to work on advocacy issues. So we are 3 minutes over time. Let's let Jamie speak, and we can kind of wrap up after that. Go ahead, Jamie.
Hi. Oh, this is actually Kevin. I'm the fire preparedness coordinator for Ventura County RCD. And I wanted to say I'm hugely sorry for everyone who's been affected by this fire. And thank you for everyone who's come here to talk about your experiences and share stories. I'm really sorry for everyone who's been affected. I did want to mention something on the erosion side. I know that there were some questions. I'm pretty new to this role, but my background is in botany, and I've studied a lot of the native plant communities here in Southern California. And I know that post-wildfire, if we have huge rains, there can be huge risk for mudslides. And so if anyone has properties that are directly downslope of really large hills that are now predominantly bare, I know that the mudslides can vary depending on what was growing on those hills before. But I thought that I would share, there's certain shrubs that if you had shrubs growing there before, after wildfire, they can sometimes spread through rhizomes. And if you didn't have shrubs on the hill slope, then that's a different story. And I know that also soils play a different role, but I thought that I would share, there's certain native plants that after wildfire goes through, they can really help stabilize those hillsides. And particularly like if you had chaparral bush mallow growing on your hills, it's likely that in the coming years, it's just gonna like take over that the hillside, and could really help prevent erosion if you have structures or ag land below.
Are you going to be available on Monday, Kevin, to
Yes.
talk a little bit more? So maybe you could add that
Yeah.
to your portion of the agenda.
Yeah, I just thought I would mention that in case we somehow get like a crazy influx of rain.
Sure, yeah, of course. All right, well, I know we're over time, so I want to thank everybody who has participated, all the agencies and resources and support partners who jumped in, with very little notice. And then also, Luis Lampara, Corinne Bell, Rachel, Lisa, you guys are amazing resources to our community. And I know that this work is going to impact people's timeline for recovery. So thank you so much for the dedication you have and spirit of volunteerism. So we will join everyone again on Monday at 10 a.m., same place. And this recording will be made available on the Farm Bureau of Ventura County YouTube page and to all of these organizations so that they can distribute it to their communities. So thank you very much.
And Maureen, one final pitch for tonight's meeting. It is at Rancho Campana High School, and it's where all the county agencies and relief funding opportunities will be available. So I think that will be an important community meeting for everyone to attend. It's at 6:30 this evening at Rancho Campana High School in Camarillo.
Great. Thank you so much, Corinne.
And thank you, Maureen, for organizing this.
You jumped on, took it over. It was awesome.